Welcome to Why Don't We Dress for Dinner Anymore with Silver Fox, Teddy Crockman.
And my co-host, natural redhead and gregarious individual, Melissa Pierce.
It's me, so gregarious.
You are. So what's up today, Melissa?
You know what? It took me 3 hours to get here today
I
with all of the
know.
child drop-offs.
I know.
I am really looking forward to this part of my life being done and being an empty nester.
Oh, if I only had those problems, honey. If I only had those problems of being 48 and young and beautiful again.
Right? To be 71 and to not have to be everyone's chauffeur.
There's plenty of things that you'll have to face when you're 71, but me being a mom and now a grandmom as well for the last 14 years, I like to soothe people with food. So we had some Chinese last night, Melissa. So let's see.
Oh, I have a fortune cookie.
Yes, let's see what kind of fortunes we have. Maybe we'll be able to tell the future with the fortune cookie, and maybe it'll make us feel better.
Okay.
So let's try. Wait a minute. I got to put my reading glasses on because I
'cause you
can't
gotta
see
read it.
my fortune.
You want to open them at the same time?
Yes, let's
Okay,
do
ready?
that. 1, 2, 3. Crack it.
Okay.
And let's read our little message, which says, a journey soon begins, its prize reflected in another's eyes. When what you see is what you lack, selfless love will change you back.
So weird that they're the same. Younger. But I'm old, Teddy. But I'm you, Teddy.
I'm young again. I'm only 48.
I'm 71.
But you look good.
I don't have periods anymore.
You look fabulous. You've aged beautifully.
Oh, well, I'm you.
And I'm you.
And you're a stone cold fox, Teddy.
I am. And so are you.
We look good.
Me too.
What's it like being in my
young and
year-old body?
I've got to tell you, when I was 48 years old, Melissa, and I remember that as clear as day, I was hot as AF. I mean, I was. I had my hair. Now, I was a redhead at one point. In fact, I was a redhead when I got married. But I had long, dark brown hair. My body was banging. Let me tell you, it was banging. My son at that point was, when I was 48, he was 24, 23. 23. My son was 23. And he would come home and he'd tell me after I'd been somewhere to one of his comedy events or shows or whatever. And he would say to me, Mom, all my friends think you are gorgeous. They think you are hot. And I'm like, really? Really? They don't say that anymore, Melissa. But you're just going to have to imagine what it is to be a 70-plus-year-old woman. What do you think that's going to be like?
I can tell you now, I got wrinkly knees, and I'm wearing pantyhose.
Well, you don't have wrinkly knees with your pantyhose on, and knock it off. I, on the other hand, have no wrinkly knees because I'm 48 and I did not have wrinkly knees. In fact, did I ever tell you about the time that Ken and I went to New York, bought my first pair of Manolo Blahniks, big stilettos, of course, wore a black mini dress that just covered, that territory. I had a big ponytail, kind of like the silver one that I wear now, but it was brunette. And I walked into that rainbow room, and I am telling you, jaws were a dropping.
I bet they were.
Jaws were a dropping.
70-year-old, I think
You're a fox. I think you should be proud of the way you look. At 71, in fact, I think that silver hair actually goes beautifully with your skin color. I love the red lip. It's not myself. I do. I love it.
But how are people going to tell us apart at our next fashion event? I'm going to have to act like you, and you're going to have to act like
I don't know. They might confuse us. Of course, you're only 9 feet taller than I am. There's the rub.
That's true.
There's the Melissa's only 9 inches taller than I am. But I will tell you this, Melissa, from my own experience, being a 48-year-old woman, it's not all hunky-dory, as I'm sure you know. And I will tell you from my experience that when you're 48, at least for me, I tried extra hard to look hot because I thought, what if I turn 50 and all of a sudden I just don't look good anymore? What if people start thinking I'm old? And I don't want people to think I'm old. So I really, really worked hard keeping my body in good shape, taking care of my skin. I always loved fashion, so I always, dressed well. But I will say that, there are some anxieties that come up when you're 48. And your kids are grown. I had a 23-year-old son at this point. Of course, people could.
That's what's nice about being 48.
They couldn't believe it. I'd say, I have a 23-year-old son, and they go, get out of here. And they go, you can't be more than 35, 36. And I'd be, try 48. So I've always been proud of my age. I've never hidden it, ever. But I will say there are anxieties that come with being 48. There's a lot of women, I don't know if you're going through this now, who feel that once they go through menopause, they lose their fertility, and therefore they feel that that's it. Life is over. They're not in the hunt anymore. They can't have children anymore. They're reaching the quote unquote granny age, because anytime in your 50s, you probably have kids that are in their 20s at least. Now, kids don't get married as young as we used to when I was your age, 70.
When you
were 70, but not when I was 70, but when I was.
You're gonna be so confused.
I'm confused. I'm confused. I don't know what age I am. I don't know what age I am.
I have to re-record this.
I don't know what the hell I'm saying anymore. Let's look at it so far.
Recording, so.
When you're in your 50s, one of the things many people realize is you've now entered what's called the granny space, because you typically have children in their 20s. Of course, now people are having children older, so they might not necessarily have kids of that age group. But I remember when I was actually 48, most of us had kids who were in their 20s. So at any time, you could become a granny. And that sometimes is very scary to people. They run from the name grandma. I noticed a lot of people use Mima or Glamma or, all these kind of like offshoot names because they don't want to actually own the word grandmother, as if you become a grandmother, all of a sudden you become this old woman.
Stop! I'm doing my Teddi. Stop! Teddi! When you were 48, when you're in your 50s.
You're very loud.
Oh, yes, I'm very loud and obnoxious because I'm great. You were Mormon.
I was Mormon. I don't know what I am. Who am I? Who am I? Where am I? What am I?
You're fashion Mrs. Frizzle. Wait, so when you were 48, you were going into your 50s. Did you also ascribe to that? Were you like, oh, I've hit the grandma age?
No, I did
Like
not.
how
I
was
have to
it?
say,
What was it for you?
it did not. And I became a grandmother at the age of 58.
Okay.
So, and I still look very good at
Yeah, you look
58.
good now.
But I mean, I looked good in a different way.
Sure.
There's different ways of looking good. Just like you look great in that silver wig. I wouldn't strongly suggest that you go out now and dye your hair silver. But what I'm saying is, look at how well you'll look when you do get older. You look beautiful. That is, you even came out after you saw your hair like that and you said, I'm looking good. So I think a lot of women are afraid of the gray hair and that's why they continue to dye. When in reality, to tell you the truth, and I would like to hear this from our listeners, do you think that I look younger with my hair dyed? Because to tell you the truth, I really, after I put this wig on today, I did not think I looked any younger. I just thought I looked like an older version of a woman with red hair. I kind of look like an older Melissa. So I think a lot of women fool themselves with the dyed hair and they think it makes them look younger, but it's not going to take away your little neck wrinkles, which I have neck wrinkles at 48. That's so wonderful. No neck wrinkles at 48. So you can see my aging and I don't hide it. You can see my neck wrinkles. You can see I'm a little jolly here or whatever. So the red hair in and of itself doesn't really make me look younger. It might make some people feel like they look younger, but
But
in reality, they don't.
you didn't mind being called grandma. You didn't feel like you were going into your granny
I not
age.
only don't mind being called grandma, my grandson calls me granny. Granny.
Granny.
Granny. And a lot of people think, oh, that makes you look so or feel so old.
That's hilarious. That makes me think of the Beverly Hillbillies.
I know a lot of people think of that, but you want to know something? Very proper English people call their grandmothers granny.
Oh, that's hilarious. And
so
you went with Granny.
I went with Granny.
But you didn't.
He calls me Gran most of the time.
But you didn't feel like crawling under a rock and disappearing.
Absolutely
You lived 100% out loud.
Absolutely not. And hopefully that's the message that we're trying to send to people today is, me in reality, I'm a 70-plus-year-old woman and pretending like I'm 48 really is like fun for a second.
Mm-hmm.
But I wouldn't want to go through all the crap I went through when I was 48, especially career-wise. You're still plugging away, climbing the ladder of quote unquote success, working that 9 to 5, whatever, grind, all that kind of stuff. I've been there. I've been young already. I've only started experiencing being an older woman in about the last, I would say 6, 7 years,
What do you mean by that?
Well, I would say you start to actually, the official senior citizen age is 65. So if you take it like that, most people 64 to whatever, do not consider themselves senior citizens. They consider themselves middle-aged, I would say, up into the point of about 64. And then when you hit 65, which is the official senior citizen age,
okay.
Some people flip out and think, oh my God, now I'm really old. And I got news for you. You're not going to look much different when you're 66 and you're 64.
Sure, you're not really old.
I mean, where do you draw the line?
Okay, well, what are we looking forward to? I mean, I'm 40. I'm 48. I mean,
Right.
now I'm stuck in Teddy's body.
You're 48.
At 71. Yeah, but at 71, what am I looking forward to?
Well, what do you think you're going to be looking? What do you, in your imagination, feel that you're going to be experiencing when you're in your 70s?
Oh, that's such a hard one because
everybody kind of imagines what they're going to be like when they're old. I'll tell you one thing. The way that I imagined myself, let's say when I was in my 20s and 30s, and sometimes Ken and I would talk about being old people on the rocking chair together and that kind of thing. And Ken would say, oh, you're going to make a cute little old lady, like I was going to be some crumpled up little shriveled up prune.
Absolutely not.
Yeah. And so what I thought I would look like or even feel like in my 70s, in my 20s, 30s, or even 40s is a completely wrong perception of how I actually am now in my 70s. So what's your perception? What's your perception of how you're going to be when you're in your 70s?
So, right, I'm really looking forward to menopause, honestly.
Okay.
Can't wait to be done with that.
Okay.
Although I'm kind of terrified about losing estrogen in my face and getting like super wrinkly.
Right.
I'm like,
collagen loss.
like, yeah, exactly. I'm like, oh, how do I combat? And I'm like, oh, do I need to combat that? Is that something I have to worry about? And so there's this whole thing going on. I'm like, how much of that is brainwashing? How much of that is marketing, and how much of that is like me recognizing my own mortality?
Right.
But really, Michael and I were talking about this in the car. Hey, what do you want to do? Because my last child is leaving home this August. And I'm like, oh, I could buy an RV, travel around and make art and meet people and do anything, which is something that I did as a child. I grew up as a military brat. All we did was travel. I kept it up as an adult until I had children. So when I imagine myself as an older adult, I imagine myself just traveling and making art.
So you have what you're envisioning then, which a lot of people do. They envision there'll be more freedom. You'll be able to, because you don't have kids at home, you're able to come and go as you please again. You're almost kind of starting like a second adulthood, but instead of it being a young adulthood, when you first get married and you have your children, you're having a mature adulthood.
Well, here's the thing, right? I have never been an adult without being a parent. So
That's true. Because you had your first child at what, 18?
Yeah.
So you were a teen mom.
I will get to experiencing being a less responsible adult for the first time.
That's got to be. Now that's
wild.
That I cannot relate to. That I cannot relate to, because I had my one and only son when I was 26, got married at 24. So by the time I had a child, I had a fully developed brain, because they say, your brain does not develop until you're 25.
Right. And my 30-year-old son.
I hate to see what I would have done to that child between 18 and 25. I probably would have killed him by accident.
Right. My 30-year-old son and I talk about this all the time. I was like, oh, I'm the reason you have high anxiety, because I was 18 when you were a child.
Anxiety.
Yeah. Right. I was like, it was me. We grew up together. Yes. I'm so sorry.
Yeah. It's the truth. It's the truth. So for you, it's going to be a first time to know what that kind of freedom is like.
Right. Although, honestly, my children I'm still responsible for them. I still need to help them, right? They're in college. I'll still be paying for their college, all of those things. But yes, it will be the first time I get to be a less responsible adult.
So that's something to look forward to.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm super excited about
it. That's a fun thing. And but you're right. I have a 45-year-old son now. You never, ever stop wanting to help them. You always want to help. Any pain that you see them going through, any rough times that you see them going through, often, and I can't speak for everybody, I'm just saying often you feel like you need to do something to help them, because the worst thing for me, any parent can experience is to see their kid, I don't care how old they are, in any level of pain or hardship. You want to ease it in some way, shape, or form, because after all, we feel responsible for bringing them into the world. And so therefore, I think we feel like we need to follow their life journey.
Right. Here's something that I am looking forward to. And I think a lot of it stems from just being friends with you, is that you still dress fantastically.
Thank you.
You still like very stylish. You keep up on makeup trends. You pay attention to your body. You pay attention to what's happening out in the world. You have not retired in the sense that we used to think about retirement.
That's exactly
You have not slid under a rock and just become like useful to someone else. You're like, no, I'm living my life. And I'm so excited to just live my life and celebrate being myself for, the next 40 to 50 years.
That's 40 to 50
years
after 70. I will say
after 48, sorry.
But after 48, you have another, you have 40 some years probably
40 years,
live. And that's fabulous. I'm so glad to hear that, Melissa, because if I do nothing else in my more mature, I don't like to say old, but in my more mature years, if I can, first of all, I love making younger friends. I mean, you are old, young enough to be my daughter in real life. But look at how much we have in common, just as women.
Yeah.
We're in different stages of our lives, but just the commonality of being women drew us together, and common interests and intellect and that kind of thing. And if that makes me so happy when I hear people say, oh, you're such an inspiration. I never saw anybody in their 70s who's dressed like you, acts like you, whatever. And I'm thinking, there's a reason for that. And I think a lot of my cohorts just fall into that trap, Melissa, of feeling like they need to just be quiet now, stay out of the spotlight, dress down. A lot of them wear zero makeup. They just, kind of dress very conservatively. And when I say conservatively, I'm not talking about chic conservatively. I'm talking about, just kind of plain. And they enjoy their grandchildren, which is fine. I enjoy my grandson and stuff. But I feel, I feel healthy. My mind is still operating fairly well. There are some times when I have gaps. Like the other day, my husband and I were watching the finale of Sirens, and we had just watched the episode the night before, and I forgot a very important part that happened the night before. And I go, he did fall off the rocks? And he goes, don't you remember that, Teddy? We just watched it yesterday. I'm like, no, I can't remember.
You know what? Michael and I joke about this all the time too, because I can watch the same thing 3 or 4 times and not remember the plot.
You know why? I think our minds are constantly going.
I was like, oh, I'm running 6 different programs. I'm just sitting here with you to pass the time.
Right.
But
I can't tell you how many times I start a movie, and this is the great thing about streaming. I'll start a movie, and 15 minutes into it, I can't tell you what happened because my mind was in another place. So then I got to rewind the whole movie again and start again because oftentimes I miss the beginning of movies, especially when we're at the movie theater, because my mind is wandering off somewhere, and then I start to catch the loop of the movie probably 20 minutes in, and I've probably lost a chunk of the movie. Yeah. So I don't know if that's maybe
I don't know which of us is ADHD now.
Yeah, we probably both are.
Probably both of us.
Probably both are. But let me tell you one thing. This is the one thing I will tell you that almost all of us in our 70s and plus experience. And that's trying to take your mind off the reality that you are going to die. I mean, we all know we're going to die at some level, but you kind of push that in the back of your mind when you're younger, like you are, that kind of, that's years away. That's years away. My husband my husband and I actually had a guy come to our house last week and talk about cremation, and we paid for our cremations. And so the reality of death, because we didn't want whoever is left behind to have to deal with that, especially in all their grief, everything should be planned out that way. The person who's left behind can just, deal with their grief and not have to worry about making all kinds of plans and things. But the reality of that I have more life behind me than ahead of me is something that you have to kind of be able to compartmentalize and not dwell on. Because if you do dwell on that, you can go to some very deep, dark places, and if you allow yourself to go into those deep, dark places, I think that's where a lot of my friends and older people who are in their 80s, even older than I am, sometimes go, and then they isolate because they just feel like that's all they can focus on is they're waiting for that last quote unquote shoe to drop. And what I'm saying is, for me, it's making young friends like you, it's going to events, it's dressing up, it's moving around. It makes your mind go to good places. So if I have any advice for anybody who's, headed into middle age and those kinds of things, it's, keep your mind in a good place. It's because if you go into those darker areas, which sometimes we have to for just, practical purposes, it's pull yourself back because it only takes literally a second to die. So don't live your life around that 1 second, because up until the moment that you drop dead, you're alive. So don't dwell on 1 second that's going to happen in your life. Live the actual life that you're in. That would be the biggest advice that I'd give to anybody.
All right. With I'm sorry, that was great advice.
Thank you.
With our last
I love looking at myself. With my
with
younger hair.
Yeah, well, I like looking at my Teddy hair. We should probably act like one another
Okay.
because that's going to be that Instagram clip.
Okay.
Right?
I will tone myself down because I'm from a Mormon military background. So I've grown up in a very strict environment.
And I'm Teddy. I was gonna I don't know what I was, Rosanna Dana. And I'm Teddy Crockman. I'm Greek, and I use my hands. I can't even use my hands like you. I feel like I'm karate chopping.
You are karate chopping. But that's, you know how hard it is for me not to move my hands right now. I've got them on the table.
You have to put and I'm like, I'm Teddy, and I'm telling you all of these things. I feel like
somebody's handcuffed.
And like, to express myself, I have to move my hands because I have such a big soul and personality and heart.
I don't know, but you keep putting your hands in front of me. Would you please stop that? This is what she does to me all the time. When we're filming a podcast, she'll go like this to me. And she does it very politely. She goes like this. Now here's my hand. And she'll go like this.
And Teddy's like, oh.
And she'll go like that. Like, dear.
Oh, my mom listens to our show. And she's like,
and your mom's in London, right? Isn't she?
Yeah, she's in London.
Yeah.
Or she's close to London. She's not in London. She'll call me and tell me that. She's like, you lied. My mom listens to our show and she's like, that lady keeps talking over you.
I talk over everybody.
Like, Mom, she's Greek.
There's one hands.
She's Greek.
There's
Mom, she's Greek. Oh, here, this is easier for me to do if my hands are on my hands are on the counter, then I can talk with my hands just fine.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And see, I feel like locked up.
And I'm like, that's the noise Teddy makes. I've got a story for that.
Right. That's how I grew up, Melissa. I told you that our landlady, we lived in a 2-flat, and my Aunt Connie and my mom and me would sit Saturday morning at the coffee table, and we would talk so loud because we talk over each other and interrupt each other that my landlady actually thought we were arguing. When we were actually just having a lively conversation.
Do you know that I was an exchange student at 46? Because I didn't go to college until my 40s.
Right.
And so I did a summer exchange for a month. And I was an exchange student at 46.
Yes.
And so I get to Spain. I went to Spain.
Yeah.
I get to Spain. I live with a family. The parents are my age, of course. They're like, we don't know what to do. We've got an exchange students that are exact age.
Students.
They were actually lovely.
She's like Natalia.
Right. They were lovely. But I got to do this exchange. But it was crazy because Spanish families also very talkative. They talk over each other. They sound like they are arguing.
Yes.
And for the first couple days, I was like, holy shit. These people are going to kill each other. And then I mentioned this to, our teachers, our professors, and they're like, oh no, Melissa, that's just how they talk.
Right.
And I had to get used to
it's the culture.
Jumping in. Yeah. So I do get it. Okay. We need to save some juice for the introduction.
Save what juice?
If you want this episode,
juices again?
If you want this episode
when you're in your 70s, you have no juices.
So I'm doing this. I am doing this talk at an event called Hot Flashes and Fierce Tales.
Okay.
And the title of my talk is called We Need More Lube, because it's my story of perimenopause.
Yes. There is no lubricating forces anymore.
Right. It's just called We Need More Lube. Melissa's story of menopause. People who are not watching this are not going to understand how much fun we're having because Teddy won't let me use my hands to talk at all.
Melissa always presses my hands down very politely and she'll go like this.
Just when she's putting them in front of my face to make a point.
But it is interesting. I thought it was an interesting subject for us to explore, is to try to be in each other's shoes. And of course, I've been there, done that, your age.
Right.
But you can only imagine what it's like to be another 26 years older.
Right.
Whatever.
And Teddy,
28 years older, I think I am now.
And you went through your children experiencing all of the ups and downs of adulthood.
Right. Still going through it.
Yeah, discovering like who you're going to be.
Right.
You went through cancer. You went through like everything with your partner.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's a lot more life to live, is all I can tell you. And my advice is just like Oprah, live your best life, because that's all you've got is this one life. And if you don't make the most of it, then, when you look back on those last 5 seconds of life and think to yourself, did I really do everything or as much as I wanted to do? And if your answer is no, I never did hardly anything that I wanted to, that's a sad moment.
Right. You know what I always tell myself? The time will pass anyway.
Right.
You may as well do
You'll
what you
be
want.
70. Hopefully you'll be 70. Not everybody gets to live this long, but no matter what you do, someday you will be 70. So I think that's kind of the moral of our story here, is that you're going to age, you're aging every day. Do it gracefully and appreciate your youth, because you're only going to be 48 once.
Mm-hmm. And if you get the opportunity to crack open a fortune cookie next to Teddy and make a wish, do it, because you're going to look fantastic.
And you're going to be fabulous at 48 as well.
Mm-hmm. Hey, Melissa.
What, Teddy?
Why don't we dress for dinner anymore?
I don't know, Teddy. Why don't we?
Beats me.
Thanks for listening to Why Don't We Dress for Dinner Anymore? Please remember to subscribe and give us a 5-star rating. That really helps people find us.
And if you're a brand and want to sponsor the show, please email us at whydon'twedressfordinner@gmail.com, also linked in the show notes.
And if you're a fabulous person and you want to support our work, join us on our Patreon or take us out to dinner sometime and we'll be sure to dress up for you.